you come back from war, you can learn blah blah blah. Then
Testing.
Chris, you also need to give them
Your Okay, testing. If anyone's watching the stream yet, please let me know if there's any audio. Testing. Excellent. Audio's clear, screen's clear. I will be starting in approximately 5.5 minutes or thereabouts. No, 4 minutes. I'm not starting at 12 minutes past. That's very strange. Okay, I'll be starting in 4 minutes. Anyone who's participating in this... Hello, Wackanalian. Anyone who's participating between this, please, take the chance to go to the toilet, get yourself a glass of water or coffee. We will be starting in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I'll be keeping the microphone on now. And just having a glass of water.
Who's there?
Hello, Matthew. Hello, Azera.
Hello.
Amanda says hi. Right. Oh. Okay, cool. We've got people in the live training channel.
He was there. Is there
Yeah. Right, I'll be going live and recording in 2 minutes.
Pam's here too.
That's great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to be starting the lesson in just a minute. It's been a while since I've done an actual lesson where I'm trying to teach people things rather than just presenting stuff. So, we'll go from there. Okay, I'm starting now. I'm just going to start my recording tool and hope it doesn't crash. And then we'll get busy. 3, 2. Okay, hello everyone, this is Chris, formerly known as Old Blue. I will be your Unreal Engine trainer today. I hope you're all well. We have 3 people in the Discord, 7 people on Twitch, and a few people using the live system on YouTube. So hello to everybody. As per usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. They'll go straight through to my question box here and I'll be able to answer any questions you have. I have a helper in channel as well. That's Alan, I think. So if you can't get through to me, please tell Alan, also known as Loving Saskia. Okay, so let's have a quick talk. First of all, we're going to be working today in Unreal Engine, obviously. This is Epic Games' game engine that they use to power such games as Fortnite, and that you've seen obviously for running Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and lots of other things. It's a massively powerful and very popular engine, and currently we're on version 4.25, I believe. Now, I am going to be teaching blueprints today, and I'll be teaching a very basic overview of blueprints. Now, if you don't know what blueprints are basically a visual scripting system. Now, if in the past you've been interested in doing game development and you've been basically caught short by the fact that there's a lot of coding needed, whether it's C# or C++ or whatever, you don't need to do that in Unreal Engine. You can do coding, and of course if you can code in C++, it is quicker and certainly a lot more efficient. However, when it comes time to actually build your project, if you've used blueprints instead, it still compiles them and it runs absolutely fine. You get a really good, fast result. Now then, where shall we start out? Well, I'm going to discuss with you the very basics of blueprints, because I only have an hour today, and I want to get obviously quite into it. I want to get you interested and enthused on using blueprints. So, first of all, what do we use blueprints for? Well, blueprints can be used for anything, literally anything. If, for example, I was to go in and just start playing my basic first-person example map that I've got here in Unreal Engine, you'll see that we have our character here with his gun, and he can fire his projectiles and jump and move around and strafe and all the other things you'd expect in a game. And the reason that you can do that is because we have here this blueprint. Okay, and this is our first person character. And inside this we have lots and lots of nodes that are basically telling Unreal Engine what you want to do in certain circumstances. I know that's not really a great way of describing it. However, if I just go into my blueprints here, for my first person blueprint, you'll see that we have a blueprint class here for first person game mode. We have here a blueprint class for the first person HUD, which is your heads up display, which is what you see. And you've got your first person character. Now, I'm just going to quickly dive in straight away. So when I double click on this, you'll see we've got all this here, all these boxes and lines connecting them together. And this can look terrifying. And it will do if you don't know what you're looking at. But honestly, this is all really easy to get used to, so don't worry about it. Now, at the top in our blueprint, okay, because I'm just giving you a kind of walk around of what you can see here, we have this section here, which is components. And this is everything that's in your blueprint. So inside a blueprint, you can have things like meshes. You can have things like, here we've got motion controller components so that it knows whether or not you're using those. It's got a VR gun skeletal component, and it's got a few other things as well, and we can see those if I just click on viewport. So here you can see the parts that go up to make it. So for example, there's the arm that you have holding the gun, okay, and that's your mesh 2P. Then underneath that you have the actual gun itself, and then here you have a sphere. Okay, and I believe this is used as basically your emission for the bullets, so that it knows where they're coming from. Now, as well as that, if we keep going down, we have these things here, these event graphs. And what these are basically little kind of functions that you can call inside of this part here where all your nodes are. So this is the main event graph, but you can construct little sub ones, and these become like little subroutines. So if you know a little bit about, for example, BASIC, you'll know that you can make little subroutines. You can call them using, you know, things like go subs and things like that. This is the equivalent of that from many years ago. You know, very powerful little tool. Then here you have your functions, which we'll go into later, and then down here we have variables. Now, most blueprints use variables, and obviously the reason that we use variables is because we want the blueprint to be able to take information that we give it and work with that information, change the information, and then do something. So, for example, this is the base turn rate, and if we look over here, this has a rate of 45, and this is telling Unreal Engine, when it's called, that that is the basic speed at which to turn. And we also have a basic looking up rate. We have this here, which will let you know whether or not it's using motion controllers. And we can add variables to our blueprint very, very easily, just by pressing the plus variable button here. And in doing so, we get things like booleans, which obviously, you know, a boolean is basically a switch on off, yes, no, okay? You've got things like, obviously, it's going to be easier if I just click a variable here to show you. And there it is there, new var. So you've got your booleans, you've got bytes, you've got integers, integer 64s, references, floats, names, strings, text, vectors, rotators and transforms, and these are just the basic ones, and then it goes on from here. Remember, I'm talking about basic things though. Okay, now we'll address these as we come to them in our very basic lesson, and you'll see that when I clicked plus to create, it made this here, which is new var 0, and I can rename this as our underscore boolean. Okay, now with our boolean here, you'll notice its default, it doesn't have a default value. That's because every time we change something major and add a variable, we need to just quickly compile, so we no longer have what's known as dirty code. It makes sure it works, we don't get an error, and now we can assign our boolean true or false. Okay, so compile, save, and that's all there is to it. Now, going back to this again, you've seen obviously on the right hand side we have details for our various variables down here. And then obviously if I zoom in, you can see this is what our nodes look like. And I really don't see that it's a good idea to start with this code, because this code's obviously quite complicated, and we're going to start with something a lot more simple. But I thought I'd let you have a quick look so you can kind of see. It's nothing to be frightened of. Now then, I've got a question came in from one of my students, and it says, is dirty code broken code? No, dirty code isn't broken code. Dirty code is basically code that just hasn't been compiled yet. Once you compile it, your code is no longer dirty, and you can adjust your variables and so on as you see fit. So I just thought I'd let you know that. Okay, now let's go back to our content. Now we've talked a little bit about, you're welcome, we've talked a little bit about variables, really just using the player character as an example here. But that's only one of the examples. Anything and everything can be blueprints. Now, if you know a little bit about Unreal Engine, which is great, you'll know that obviously we use things like these. We use lots of meshes, and this is how we put together basically the building blocks of a level, is by using lots and lots of these meshes here. But we can turn these meshes into blueprints as well. So let's make a quick example of this, just to kind of show you some of the simple things we can do with a blueprint. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blueprint here, sorry, this mesh here, and this is just editor cube 21. Okay, so if you want to select it yourself in your first person example map, go ahead. If you don't want to, just keep watching. And I can go here to blueprint, add script, and it will convert the actor into a reusable blueprint that can have script behavior. So click on that, and I'm going to make it over here with a nice name, so I'm going to call it my cube blueprint. Okay, and I'm going to click just select, and that's it. Now here you can see what we have. We have our single cube just underneath our components. We have no variables, because this is a new blueprint, no macros, no dispatchers, nothing over here. But we do have over here some information that we can change if we need to. Now, if I was to click on our static mesh component, you'll see I can do things like change its scale. I can change its options for physics, because it's currently simulating physics, and I'm going to turn that off. And I can also change things like its lighting for its, what do you call it, its map resolution, and I can make it whether it's hidden or not hidden in game. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly compile that and save, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very simple blueprint where if we come up to this and get too close to it, it's just going to vanish. Okay, so if I go here where it says cube BP self, I'm going to add a new component to my blueprint, and underneath this I'm going to just call a simple, hang on, I'll just find it here. No, I don't want a cube, I want a box collision. So I'll just scroll down to box collision, and if I grab this arrow, you'll see if I pull it out, it's just there. Now, at the minute, we can't see it because it's inside this cube, but what we want is we want this cube, when we walk into it, to make this cube turn invisible. So this framework cube. So I'm going to change it in its extents. So I've just changed its extents to 100 each way. So now if we get near, we'll be able to make this register something. Okay, we'll be able to make this perform an action of some kind. Now I think I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So 150 by 150. There we go. And I'm going to compile and save. Lovely. Now, if we go inside, there's our static mesh component, and here's our box collision here. Okay, and I'm going to rename this, because we always rename things to keep it nice and clean. So I'm going to call it col1. Alright, now, this is a very simple part. What we want to do is, we want to, when the player walks into this and overlaps with it, we're going to make this invisible. So we'll go over here to our event graph, and remember this is where we saw all those nodes before, and you can't see any now, just these three. And what these three are, these are events. These will basically kick off an action. So let's look at the first one. Event begin play. Now I'm sure you can kind of work out what that one is. I'll just have a quick sip of coffee. However, what it means is that when the game starts and you've begun play, something happens. And that comes off from here, where the little exec box is, and it will call a function. Now, if it's faded out like this, it means that we don't have any nodes coming off it, so it's not doing anything. Then we have this here, event actor begin overlap. Now, this is for the entire thing, okay? If something's overlapping the entire blueprint, this will get called, and then we get a node coming off this. And then finally, event tick. Now it's best not to use this one because this one runs all the time, and it's not very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not very efficient. Okay, so there are other ways of doing this. You really only want to call something happening with your blueprint if something's happening. So you can have it where it's looking for an event, like the actor begin overlap, or you can have something start at the very beginning of play, like this one. But event tick, like I say, this happens all the time. This is good for things like using switches, where you want multiple things to run sequentially, but we're probably not going to use it for this one. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, we want this. This is our static mesh component inherited. This is our box. And I am going to rename it. So if I go over here, and I should be, oh, it's not going to let me rename it, of course, because it's a core piece. Sometimes they don't, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out. Okay? And this is my static mesh component. Now, at the minute, it's visible, but we don't want it to be visible. So, when someone goes into a box, I'm going to type the word hidden. Okay, and here you can see an option, set hidden in game. Okay, and it's given me static mesh component again, so I'll just delete one of those. And it's given me an option, should it now be hidden? And I'll click yes. Okay, and now what I can do is, when there's an overlap, I can connect this to this. and it will hide this object in the game. Okay, so compile, save. You'll notice there's no errors here. And if I just minimize my window just a little bit, there we go, and right click in here and go to play from here, and I believe that was our invisible box over here. Is it this one or was it the other one? Hang on, I better check. That was editor cube. Oh, I see, I haven't dragged my cube in yet. There it is there. Silly me. Right, so it's that one. So play from here, and let's go up to it, and you'll notice, oh, it's not gone invisible. Okay, well, why is that? It's because I need to call down this collision here, see? So here's my collision, and I'm going to read the value of it. Now, what I can do is I can have an overlap on this collision here. This is still the wrong cube. I've got the wrong cube being chosen. Here it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the other cubes in this level, because I keep banging into the wrong one. There we go. This will just take a minute. And for the person who just asked in chat, I'm doing very well, thank you. And today is blueprints. So there we go. Something fun to enjoy. Right. So there's our blueprint here, and there, it's vanished. It's because I was going to the wrong one. Silly old me. Now, let's look at that again. Okay, so I'm going to just turn my start position here to look at it so that I'm seeing the right one, because I was looking at the wrong one. And if I go up to it, oh, it's gone. And that's it. Okay, so what now? Well, how do we make it reappear again? Well, we know this works. Now, I'm going to delete this event tick so it's out of my way, and event begin play so this is out of my way. We know that this is working here to set it hidden in game. But what about when actor end overlap? Well, there we go. So we do have a collision action actor end overlap. Okay, which is very similar obviously to this one here. And what we can do is I can copy this, and I can copy the static mesh component. So all I did there was I held control, and I just did a marquee select and drag, and I did a control W, because that's copy in this. And now when it ends my overlap, I can just connect back to that, compile, save. And now, if I was to just come in here and click play, you'll see it's gone, but it hasn't came back. Why hasn't it came back? You'd think that actor end overlap was supposed to work, but it's not, because it's hidden and it's not picking that up. Well, what we can do instead is we could use a switch. Okay, so we could basically assign this where if there's an overlap, remember I was talking about booleans earlier? Well, here we are, actor begin overlap. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a boolean is overlap. And this boolean, if we compile and save, is going to allow us to check, is the overlap still happening? Okay, so set is overlap. There we go. Now it's overlapped. Yeah? Now, if I get further away from this, I could then set the overlap to not be checked. So it would be obviously not ticked here, it'd be false. And then we could use that to set it as being hidden in game as well. So you've got a few options there for how you can do this. You don't need to worry too much about, you know, basically how you can do this. Right, hang on a second again. Someone just wants me to explain something. What would you like me to explain? That's quite all right. Beginners are completely welcome in this class. button. You don't understand the button. Is that what you're saying? Oh, the Boolean. The Boolean. Right, no problem. A little bit more explanation about what the Boolean is. Okay, well, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so we've got this actor event beginner overlap. So let's get our box and just drag that in. There we go. Col1. And what we're going to do is on overlap, collision 1 is going to be set to hidden. Okay, so set hidden in game, static mesh component. There we go. I was hiding the collision component for some reason there. Okay, so put that down there. Now, is overlap, I'll pop that here, okay? So set is overlap. Sorry, get is overlap, not set. And get is reading the value of our variable. Okay, so it wants to know whether it's true or false. Now, if it's true or false, it's going to put whichever value it is just into hidden here. Okay? So at the minute, is overlap? No. Okay? But we could change it. So if I just click the eye here, and so we can... Let me just re-explain this a little bit easier, okay, just to put it. I've just clicked the eye there, and what we've done is, by clicking the little eye next to it, we've made this variable public. This means that we can now adjust this really easily inside our editor. Okay, so, just to show you, if I compile and save, if I click on this, and just scroll down a little bit, you'll see we now have is overlap. Okay, that was the name of our Boolean. But I'm going to change the name of this now because we're using it with something slightly different. And I'm going to change this to should this be hidden. Okay, and compile and save. Now, with this Boolean, if I tick should this be hidden, when we collide with it, it will hide. When I turn it off, it won't hide. But let's see what happens, because that's not going to happen yet. So I'll click play, and nothing happens at all, you see. Now I'll tick, obviously should this be hidden, and I'll just turn it on in here. I could have turned it on in the blueprint window as well. And it vanishes. Okay, so we're using our Boolean, our yes, no, to control the visibility of this object. Now remember, we can just tick it and untick it in this as well. The benefit of that is that if I copy this, so I'm just going to hold Alt and drag, and you'll see that we've got all these copies of this blueprint here. Okay. Now let's say we don't want to hide the second one, so I'll turn that off, and we don't want to hide the fourth one. So I'll turn that off. Okay? Now I'm going to come down and I'm just going to save my level. You don't have to, but it's good practice. And I'm going to click play, not pray. Now, if I go over here, I'm going to walk up and you'll see only the ones I've allocated vanish. And again, remember, we can use the same method to make them reappear again. But this was just a very, very, very quick example. So hopefully you kind of got what I was doing there. And I do hope I'm not speaking too quickly. If I am, please slow me down. Yes, thank you. I would say that yes, you can. Sorry, someone was just saying, you know, can you use this to make a very simple disappearing door? You can, but it wouldn't be a very good way of doing it. Maybe if you're doing sci-fi, you could kick off a special effect like particles and things like that as you make a door disappear, but that's something else to come to. Okay, now I'm saving my level now that I've got rid of that, but you'll notice in my content browser here I still have my cube, and I can throw that down at any time and it still has its functionality. Now you see where it says defaults here? Just a little bit of housekeeping you can do. Okay, I'll just go into my blueprint and click should this be hidden, and you'll see under category it's got nothing. So I'm going to change this to the word tools, and then I'm going to compile and save, and now this has its own little tools menu. Okay, and you can add lots and lots of different options to that, which is incredibly useful. Right, so we've looked at one kind of blueprint there, which is where we're coming up to it and it's performing an action. Now let's look at a blueprint for if we're going to be doing things like level building and level designing and things like that. Now, as an example, when I've been working on my own game recently, one of the things I've had to do is look at how to create lots and lots and lots of different houses that have different configurations and different formats, but are basically built from the same kit. Now, one way of doing that is obviously I build each and every one of them. Just slowly build them, methodically put them out. But, you know, that takes time. What I can do instead is I can use what's called a construction blueprint. Now, we saw this already. If we look at our cube BP, you'll see we've got this construction script here. And what this does is, this runs as we plop it down, okay, in the editor, and it'll go down a little route based on some selections we make. Remember, we've got the Boolean in there at the moment, and that allows us to basically have different kinds of object built from this. Now, I'll try and explain it a little bit more easily. Imagine you have a table with 6 legs and with a teapot on it. Now, you want a table that's only got 4 legs and no teapot on it. So we change the selection for, you know, 6 legs to 4 legs, and we change the selection to no teapot, and then when you drag it out, you've got a table with no teapot and only 4 legs on. This is something that actually took me far too much time when I first started learning Unreal Engine, because the concept I just did not understand it. So I'm going to do it simply by showing you how it's done. Okay. Now I'm just quickly making this level empty of stuff, including where it says first person template there, and I'm going to save. Now let's create a chair, because a chair's a really good example, and we've got all the tools we need to create one just here. See? So I'm going to pull out a cube, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it to chair, even though it isn't, and I'm going to create blueprint add script just here, and I'm going to call it chair blueprint. You see, so it's got a good name already, and just click select. Okay, so as per, we get this nice big box here, and as you can see over here, we don't really have a whole lot of stuff going on. We've only got this single mesh, and for a chair we're going to need a few more pieces. So as you probably know from using Unreal Engine, we have various tools that we can use, scale, transform, and so on. I am just going to make sure that this is unscaled here, ununiform scaling. That's why this little key lock thing here is not on. And I'm just going to bring this down to about there. Okay, and that will be our seat. Now, our seat is always going to be there. Okay, let's just assume that. Or at least our base of our chair. Well, actually, this can be the base of our chair. Okay, so this is where we're going to have the base of our chair from. Now, compile, save. Next, I'm going to pull in some more geometry. So, I want, if I just click on this, to come down, and I'm just going to get a cylinder. And here's our cylinder here. Okay, and I'm going to just adjust it. So, I'm going to give it a scale of 0.1, 0.1, and then 10. Okay, and we get this pole here. Now, with our pole, I'm going to pull this down and move it to the edge, just there, and then to this corner. Okay, and this is just a very basic modelling job, so if you're looking for a chair modelling tutorial, this probably won't be the one you want. However, we're going to call it leg 1. Now I'm going to duplicate leg 1 to this corner, so I want to do a Control W. There we go, and I've got a copy. And then Control W again, and oops, made it go the wrong way there. I'm just going to come over here, and then I'm going to do Control W again, and our leg goes over to there. Okay, now we have in essence, a stool here. So what I'm going to do now is copy these two. Control W again, remember. And I want leg 5 and leg 6. And I'm just going to bring them up. I think I brought them a little bit too high up there. Where have they gone? 5, 6. Wow, they're determined to vanish, aren't they? I'll do them one at a time, because I think they're going to be awkward otherwise. There's 5. There's 6. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate. Well, actually no, I'll just add in actually a box. So here's my cube. And pull it up. And as you can see, it's just basically taken the other cube that I was already using. And it's using the scaling, by the way, if you're wondering, of this cube. That's why this is like this. So if you don't want this scaling, by the way, don't drag it to be a sub of that, is what I'm saying. Right, anyway, back to this, and I'm going to make it 2 times the height. And just bring that in. There we go. Okay, so this is basically our chair, okay, and we have the entire thing built. Now, if I was to compile and save, this means that now we can just grab our chair and just throw it into our level any old way we want. Okay, so we've got, you know, chair, there's a copy of a chair. But we could have built that as a mesh, or we could have just built that in the game anyway, but just by dragging boxes to it. When this becomes efficient is by using the construction script and by using variables. So in my variables, I'm just going to click here, and I'm going to add, let's see, chair back. Okay, so chair back there. And what other things? Well, we can make it, you know, so it's only got 2 legs, I suppose. We'll make it 4 legs or 2 legs. How does that sound? So under variables, legs. Here we are, 4 legs. Okay, so now we can use this and this to help drive how our chair is going to look. Now remember, this is all very basic still. So what have I got? I've got a dirty blueprint. What do? We compile and save. Okay, go to our construction script just here. Now, in our construction script, okay, we want to set our chair back. Sorry, get our chair back, not set, because we want to read the value of that variable and see whether or not our chair has a back. And we know our chair back is made from leg 5, leg 6, and cube. It could just be made from a single mesh, but we've got it made from these 3 primitives. Okay, so I'll just drag them in. Okay, and now we can make these hidden. Now this isn't 100% optimal as a way of doing this, simply because they're just going to be hidden. Their collisions won't be hidden. So, you know, you'll not be able to walk through them as such. But we can change that too. We're just changing how it looks at the minute. Now our target, obviously, is leg, cube, and leg. And our chair back goes into its new value for hidden. And then I drag that across to there. Now, I could make this quicker by making leg 5 and leg 6 a child of this cube, because then I wouldn't need to call up leg 5 and leg 6. I could just propagate it to children. But we're going to keep it like this rather than doing that for the time being. So I'm going to click compile, and I'm going to click save. Now, what about the 4 legs on our chair? Well, what we can do is we can pull our 4 legs straight through like that. There they are. And we can just get the variable that says it's got 4 legs. There we are. Now, if I Control and W to make a copy of this, once it's ran through this section of the construction script, set hidden in game, it can now run over to here. Now, should this have 4 legs? Okay, yes or no? Well, we'll drag this down here, okay, and I think 4 legs is probably not a good one. So I'll change this to no legs. So I hit F2 and change this to no legs. And I'm going to attach the target for all 4 of these. Okay, because these are the targets where it's hidden. Again, we could use children coming off leg 1 and propagate to children, but we're not going to. So compile and save. Okay, so that was nice and easy. Now I'm going to just close that down, and here's our blueprint here. Okay, but we can't see the options to make the back hidden or make the legs hidden. Well, that's because we haven't clicked here. The variable's not public. Now let's do it. Compile, save. There we go. And now we can adjust these 2 options here. See? Chair back and no legs. Now that's strange. Why are we seeing that? You see? We're getting shadows, but they're not going anywhere. Well, let's look at what we've done in the chair blueprint. As you can see, we've gone set hidden in game. We do have some other options we can use as well. So if I was to go to my leg over here and just drag it out, you'll see we get all sorts of things here. So we can actually destroy the component, okay? Or we can destroy a static mesh. So let's see what that does. And I'm just going to look at my chair here. And that's not doing anything because that needs to do it during game time. So let's get rid of that. And there's lots of options you can use here. We've set visibility by hidden, but what about if we set is visible? Okay, so is this target visible? And this will return its value. So let's see, print string there we go, and this is going to print the variable says, and now if I go into play, our chair's sitting through the floor. I keep forgetting about that. Let's just pull it up. There we go, and I'll get rid of the second blueprint we used. Now, you'll notice that I wanted to see what the variable said, okay, regarding our chair, and whether the leg 5 was still visible or invisible as I was reading it. Now, we can't do that in our event graph. We have to do that in our construction graph. And I'm starting, oh, I see. Here we are, construction. So what I need to do is I need to get some information, okay, about our leg. So I'm going to get this. There's leg 1, I've just dragged it in. And I'm going to put over here visible, and we're going to see if it's visible. Okay. And then we're going to get a return value, which I'm going to print. So print string, and it's going to put a variable says, and if I just connect this to here, compile, save, and then play, and I'm probably going to have to wait now for that. There we go. So it briefly flashed up on the screen that it was not visible, and you can see now that we're at actual playtime, neither are our legs and neither is the back. But if I do this, our chair has legs and our chair does have a back. So that's how you use the construction script in order to be able to do something like this. And like I say, the reason that we do that is to make it a lot easier for when we're building complicated objects that we need to build over and over again. You wouldn't necessarily do that for example, a chair, but you would most definitely do that if you're doing something much longer form, like prefabricated buildings, complicated corridors involving pipes, or anything else really where you want to be able to make lots of changes. It's certainly worth looking at, and it's certainly worth having a good play with just to get used to. Okay, so let's look now, because like I say, we don't have a lot of time, but let's look now at the level blueprint. Now, we've looked at the individual blueprints and what they do for things like, you know, our first person character, our cube that we set here, which can go invisible, our chair over here. Okay, so, you know, we've made ourselves a vanishing cube, and we've made a chair where its legs go away. Not a bad start, to be honest. And if you've been following along and you've managed to do this, then, oh great, that's good news, you have managed to follow along. Thank you. Okay, so if you've been following along and managed to do this, that's absolutely great. Now, by the way, I've not been taking voice during the class, simply because not everyone wanted to use voice, they wanted to type questions and things. So it's probably a lot easier, that way the audio doesn't get overwhelmed by people asking things. Okay, now let's go over here. Okay, and I'm just looking at my level again, and where it says blueprints here at the top, if I open it, you'll notice that we've got this thing here called the level blueprint. Now, what is the level blueprint? Well, the level blueprint is your blueprint that basically belongs to this level. This is all the code that you want to execute that is specific to this game level. What do I mean by that? Well, as an example, in a game that I've been working on, I have the sun come up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the sun slowly progresses across the world, getting towards where it's noon. When it gets towards noon, the sun slows down, and it stays noon for basically as long as I want it to, until I kick off telling it that it's night time. So what I've done for that, to explain kind of as simply as I can, is over here I have this. This is a light source, okay? Now I can control this light source inside of my blueprint, but I can control it as long as I've got it set to movable. So now it's movable, it's dynamic, and I can change it and its location and everything inside of my example map. So compile and save. So what this means is that if I just have my direct light here, my light source selected, I can right click in my game, in my level blueprint, and you'll see here when I right click it says create a reference to my light source. Okay, I'll do that. So now, as you see, I have this little node here, and I can use this to control all aspects of my light source. Okay, so if, for example, I want to begin play, so here's my event begin play, I can set my light source, which is currently set, and let's have a look, it's set to 2.75 lux. So I'm going to set its intensity instead to something else. So set intensity of my light, and there we go. I can set a new intensity just here of say 10, compile, and I'm going to connect that to that and save. And this means that when we come in and start the level and press play, it'll be much brighter. In fact, 2.75, that'll be about 3.4 times faster than it was, sorry, brighter than it was in this preview level here. Now, you're like, well, why couldn't we just set this now rather than messing around having it done in this? And that's because rather than just setting intensity of the light source and going from there, we can do all sorts of things. So, for example, you saw there the light here has an intensity of 10. Well, what about if we wanted to change its intensity slowly over time? Then we could build, you know, a loop where we increment this perhaps by 0.1 every 30 seconds. We can literally stick on a little timer. So if I just put in the word timer here, you see we've got all sorts of options here to make timers work. And say every 30 seconds, just increase this by 0.1. Eventually we'll get it very, very bright or very, very quiet, very, very dim. Why is that important? Well, because imagine we're doing that, but imagine we also have mist coming in. Now in the morning, okay, if we have mist, and I'll just quickly grab an exponential height fog and just whack the density right up. There we go. So imagine we have this density first thing in the morning, because that's what happens in the morning, okay? You've got warm air, cool ground, or cool air, warm ground, can't quite remember which. But your fog density is going to decrease slowly over time. And so we can make the fog density decrease slowly over time based on how high the sun is, which gives you a massive amount of control over things such as, you know, environmental, the look and feel of your environment, things like that. You can also add in things like your tinting to your sky, all sorts of other fantastic things like that. Right, now, I did say this was going to be very, very quick because I've got basically 1 hour to do a quick show and tell on how blueprints work, and then I'll be doing another hour on level development. So, this is a good point, I think, where if anyone has any questions about blueprints, ideally, it would be nice to hear them. And if there's anything you quickly want me to go over, and I understand that this is quite overwhelming because I've had to work very, very fast with this. I mean, we've looked at blueprint usage, what they are, an overview, we've done some of the terminology and some of the types of blueprints. We've looked at level blueprints. We haven't looked at things like scripting terms and data-only blueprints and inheritance and stuff, but we will come to that, okay, in later lessons. But this is kind of our start point, and this is where we're going to be going from. So, like I say, yes, blueprints are used to control, or can be used to control animation. You have lots of options for that. Yes, you can. Okay, well, look, someone's just asked, what about if you're sending information from one blueprint to another blueprint? So, a good example of that would be, let's say you've done something in one blueprint and you want another blueprint to register that you've done something and do something as well. You can do that. What you would use is what's known as a blackboard. And to explain it simply, because blackboard's such a great term for this, you basically get your first blueprint to write up the information that needs to be sent to the second one, and the second one reads it off the blackboard. I think it's a fantastic way of doing it. It's like an interface. Do we have any more questions? Because I've got about 8 minutes here that I can quite happily chat to people, and I will show you that blueprint that I've been working on. So if I just go to a recent project, continue switching. Yes, absolutely. You tell me your questions, sir. That's okay. Long questions are absolutely fine. I love long questions. I'll try not to make lots of tapping noises when I'm smashing the question into Google. Oh, spam, go away. There we go. And Steam, you can stop. This is a big project, which is why it's taking ages to load, so I do apologise. Yes, thank you for asking that question. Yes, we will be looking more in depth into blueprints. This was just literally a 1 hour, hey, blueprints are cool kind of lesson, okay? So, yeah, please bear with me. The only reason I haven't told people to stick their own webcams on is because this isn't. So this isn't what do you call it? Basically full of people's screens, because this isn't a follow along. This is me kind of showing things. It's more of a show and tell. Right, so what's this question? I was wondering how you can get users to interact with the blueprints. Like I play games where you can set your... Yeah. Okay, so setting your look speed yourself for comfort and comfortability and so on, and setting screens to how it works. Well, that was kind of what I was touching upon really with blackboards. Now, a lot of the time people use setting screens, and you'll have seen obviously settings numerous times used in games where they let you kind of adjust how fast you're able to strafe and move and rotate and all the other stuff that you do. Now what that's doing basically is it's writing these variables out. So you're like, oh, I want my turn speed to be, 200. And it's writing this information out to a blackboard, or writing it out to a text file where it can be read later. And that's being picked up by the, the player controller, which again will then feed that in. It's basically an input variable that feeds that in and goes straight into, again, for example, your rotate speed or your run speed or how high you can jump. Now, what you're asking about there, where you're setting your speeds for height and things like that, and rotate speed and things like that, is actually massively important, because this has bearing obviously in gameplay and game development for things like health, for example, because when you eat a health pack, the health pack is basically telling your character, telling the blueprint that's running your character, increase your health by this many, and so it has to interface like that. So basically what we're doing, how do you get users to interface with the blueprint? We're getting users to interface with the blueprint all of the time when it comes to this. All of the time. So they pick up a health pack, they're interacting with the blueprint. Excellent. I'm glad you kind of understand that. As an example, when I go up in this game, when you go and have your dinner up at the lighthouse and you eat a big bowl of stew, the next day you'll be able to move, run and jump 15% more than you would be able to. Okay, and that's simply because it's just passing on that information. Now, again, I've got a few minutes left. I've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll just quickly show you. Remember, we were talking about blueprints before. If I go into my, I think it's in my blueprints folder here, village houses, and here we are. This is my blueprint village house, okay, which is obviously replicated many times. And I'm just going to open this right up for you so you can have a look. Now, you've learned a little bit about obviously your construction scripts, and you've learned a little bit about variables and stuff. So I'm hoping, okay, using your newfound knowledge, you'll be able to have a look at this and understand kind of what's happening. So here we have all the components, and these are just booleans. Okay, should it have a roof? Should there be windows? Should there be a chimney stack, a room divider? Should there be a front wall? Should we have the windowed left wall, windowed right wall? Okay. Now, if I go to my viewport, you can see that some of the items are visible and some aren't. But what I've got here is, this is the very basics. Okay, so if you untick to have most things, you'll have your foundations and two end walls, no windows. Here's a little staircase leading up to it and the little surround on the staircase, and that's it. Now, if I go to my construction script, and let's have a wee look here, you can see that I'm running a sequence. Okay, so my construction script runs, here's my sequence, and it does the first one, so 0. And what it does is it says, is the end wall left windowed, yes or no? If it is, it sets its visibility, okay? And it sets the visibility for the wall window to yes. If it doesn't, then it sets the wall visibility to not visible. But when it sets this one invisible, it sets the other wall that does have a window to visible or invisible, depending. So what it's doing is it's checking to see if you want a window in your wall. If you don't, it pulls up the wall that doesn't have a window and hides that one, and vice versa. And as you see, it goes down all the way. So does it have a rear wall? Does it have a rear wall with a window? Does it have a door? Does it have a roof? Does it have a chimney? We can hide all of the actual window frames themselves, because these are window frames. This is a divider between the rooms that's just set there. And then down here, step or stairs. So should it have a step? Should it have stairs? And how that comes out looking, if I just close that down, and I'm going to just go to my test room. So I'll save everything else. Please give me a moment. Yes, these blueprints that you create work on all the levels you create. So, you know, as long as it's part of your project. Okay, I'm just going to delete these off here and here because I've already got some stuff that I've got in my test. And now if I grab my village house and just drag it to here, okay, there we go. And you can see I can now change my options for end wall windows, rear wall. I can put in a roof. I should have a divider. And let me see, I do have a front. There we go. Okay, and I don't know. No, I didn't bother putting doors in because I'm running them via a separate blueprint so that I can have locks and things. So that is the same kind of complexity as making our box visible and invisible, or making our chair have a back and not have a back. But by doing it, as you can see, suddenly we have a whole world of new options to add, you know, a real look and difference to our level that we wouldn't have before. So there we go. I'll just tick some boxes. There, see? So just by ticking a few boxes using this blueprint, that's what we have. Right then, I hope you found this helpful. We've been going now for nearly an hour, so that's great. If anyone has any last questions, as I said to Roy, yes, you can basically, as you've just seen, use a blueprint that's in another level anywhere you want in your game project, okay, because this is all part of your game project. So hopefully that'll make some sense to you. So anyone else on Twitch? No. Anyone on Discord? Anyone on Discord? Because I'll be closing this up in just 30 seconds unless there's any more questions. And just to remind everyone that in 10 minutes we will be going and doing some level build basics, and hopefully you'll enjoy the level build basics. We'll be talking again about using blueprints. I'll be showing you some common sense ideas, and we will be having fun because that's what it's all about with Unreal Engine. And again, please remember, if you have any questions about Unreal Engine, you can either ask me in Discord, or you can go to www.unrealengine.com and ask in their fantastic community. Or if you go on Facebook, you can search for CG Pirates, which is my website, or you can search for Chris Robson, no H, that is me. And thank you to everyone who's participated today in watching the class. There's been a few of you, and yeah, thank you, you're welcome. And yeah, thank you too. And I will see anyone who's staying on for the next lesson in 10 minutes. Until then, I will be returning to the waiting area. Goodbye for now. And first class is done. Please feel free to have a cup of coffee, a glass of water. I will continue in Okay, the stream is now active. I will be going live in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Oh, that's good coffee. That is good coffee. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will be starting to record in approximately 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I will do the tapping thing. 30 seconds. There we go. Keep it down low. Okay, starting to record. 5, 4, 3. Oh shit, wrong button. Hi there, this is Chris. How are you doing? Also known as Old Blue. Previously the founder of 3D Palace, founder of CG Pirates, trainer of game development and 3D and all things awesome. How are you today? I hope you are keeping well. If you are not keeping well, please remember to go out and get some of that beautiful vitamin D that comes out of the sky. It is great. Okay, so today has been a nice day. I've already taught blueprints, and I am now going to be teaching some fundamentals of building levels. Now, I have a very special methodology for building levels, and what I'm going to do is try and share some of it with you. Now, sorry about that, my cat suddenly decided to be friendly. Okay, now I'm going to start a new level in Unreal Engine just to get us started. Now, all I have here is the starter content. Okay, I know you can see a folder here that says Wild Tribe. It's because I've been working with some other meshes as well, but the ones we're using is starter content. So when you make your model and it asks you, are you going to be using starter content, you're going to click yes. Now, just to quickly diverge away from what I was about to talk about, anything that Epic Games gives you, you can use. A lot of people say this. They're like, oh, can I use such and such if I've actually produced a video game? Yes. Okay, if it's been given to you by Epic Games, okay, such as the Paragon content even, yes, you can use it. You can't sell that content separately, but you can make a commercial video game that contains the content and sell that. So you can't use the individual items and go and sell them, for example, on Turbo Squid, like a dick, but you can, pardon me, but you can use them inside your game and sell your game for money. Okay, just to try and explain that. Okay, so anyway, I use starter content a lot. The reason I do is because you can buy what's called grey boxing kits through the marketplace, or you can build yourself a grey boxing kit that allows you to throw together a level really fast and kind of quickly and get an idea of where things are and where they should go. But I prefer using these because these are a good size, a good shape, and they really give you the kind of fundamentals you need for when you're building a game. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to File, New Level, and I'm going to create just a default empty level, okay? So, let me see. Actually, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a completely empty level, okay? We'll go hardcore. So, I'm going to save everything that hasn't been saved, and there we go. We get this frightening amount of nothing. Now, you shouldn't be frightened by this, okay? It's not as scary as it looks. Now, I'm going to just bring this down a bit, so I've got more screen room here. If you're following along, okay, you can ask questions, as you know. You can follow along, as you know. No, you don't need anything else. Everything that comes basically with Unreal Engine, you can do this, okay? Now, I'm going to just put a plane in the world, and I'm putting this here basically so I can build on it. So I'm going to call this my building plane, okay? And I'm going to increase the size to 10 times what it was in width and height, sorry, width and breadth, okay, and I get that. And you'll see on top of it I've got this grid. Okay, the grid is basically marking where it thinks 0 is for the floor. When it's flickering like that, it's literally covering it, okay? So I'm just going to bring it up a little bit. And you'll notice that, well, there's no clouds, there's no sun, there's no nothing. No, there isn't. If you want those, you have to put them in yourself. Now, under visual effects, I'm going to put in, let me see, I'll put some atmospheric fog. There we go, you see, and that gives us this kind of nice bright stuff going on over here. I'm going to put, well, I'm not going to use an exponential height fog because I don't think there's much point. I'll put in a directional light. There we go. And I'm going to angle it slightly. Okay, because light should be angled. And you'll notice there's no shadows or anything. That's because there's nothing to cause any shadows. Okay, we've just got this insanely bright light and nothing else. Now, this is a chance for me now to talk about my methodology of level design, level building using Unreal Engine, using what I call the reasonableness principle. Okay. Now, I used to call this ergonomics, but everyone used to be kind of scared of the idea of ergonomics. But what this is everything is built in a game or in the real world or, you know, in science fiction or whatever. Everything is built using a certain set of rules, whether they're invisible or otherwise. So, for example, if we look at science fiction, spaceships, we can assume, are built in factories. And if a spaceship's built in a factory, they're going to be using the same kind of parts over and over and over again. So that's why you get kind of turnkey shapes. If you look at Star Wars, you'll have seen the Millennium Falcon, but you'll have also seen numerous other kind of frigates that look kind of like the Millennium Falcon, because the guys at ILM caught on to this. They know that you kind of get a turnkey approach to building things. They're still going to have the same chassis, or they're going to have the same kind of cabin, and so on. And this very much applies to game development. Right. Now, I'm going to show you how this works in principle by using this. So I'm going to go into my starter content, and over here you'll see I've got lots of options, but I'm just interested in architecture. And I'm going to drag out this floor, which is 400 by 400. Okay. Now, that's dragged out, and I'm going to delete this. And now, if I just right-click upon it and go play from here, okay, you'll see what we've got basically is a 4 meter by 4 meter little cube, well, little platform. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you the very basic kind of thing we can do with a level design. So for that, I'm going to go up here. Sorry, level build. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to check these. Now these, if you use 3D, these are what you call snaps. Okay. These allow us to move things in increments. At the minute, for example, my move is set to a positional value of 10. So every time I move it, it's going to move 10 units, which is a division of 10 on this grid. If I was to crank that up to 50, or I can crank that up to 100. Okay. Now, what that means is now I can just drag this 4 times while holding Alt, and I've made a copy. And I'm going to drag it 4 times again, and I've made another copy. And 4 times again, and I've made another copy. Okay, so we have a corridor that is 4 long. Now, I'm going to drag this way. I'm going to drag this way. Okay, and we're going to make 2 small rooms here and here. The reason being that we want a start area and a finish area. Okay, so we're just dragging out our level and getting our floor in place. Okay, it's very, very easy to do this. That's why I don't have these pre-built, just so that I can kind of show you just how easy it is. Okay, so we have our floor here, okay, and we have our two little rooms here and here. And if I just click play from here, you'll see that I can walk through my level now over to here, okay? Now, this is the fundamentals of a video game and a video game level, okay? If you consider that this is your start area and this is your finish area, and your win condition in most games is going from here to here, ideally without being killed, shot, blown up, pushed over the edge or sent insane. So let's recreate that here. I'm going to right click and place actor, and I'm going to put a player start in. And if I press F to zoom in, and I'm just going to reduce this down to maybe 10, and you'll notice that says bad size. I'll just bring it up so it isn't, because it was intersecting with the floor, and I'm going to rotate it. There we go. So that arrow now is looking at where we want it to go. If I press play, you'll see, oh, automatically starts there. No matter where I am in the game, if I just click play, it'll take me there. Okay, that's what the player starts for. And now, over here, I am going to grab basic, and this is our goal, this is our box, this is where we want to be. Everyone wants to be where this box is, it's the best. And you'll notice that we have shadowing coming in because we have a light in our scene, don't we, which is here. And our shadow is following the same direction as this arrow. Okay, now, reasonable level building. What does that mean? Well, first of all, we've got to be able to go through this corridor here. Okay, we've got to be able to fit. Now, we know there's no walls on it, but when we put walls in, we want to make sure that our walls are going to be the right size and shape that we can go through them. Now, we know that 4 meters is plenty wide enough. That's lovely and wide. But we can't just put a wall around all of this because it'll look bizarre and peculiar. So what we have to do is we have to separate our corridor and our room off into individual little separate areas so that we can basically get a different feel for them. Like, for example, at the minute, the corridor is really wide. It doesn't really pose much of a threat. We can see everything that's happening because there's no walls. So let's change that. Now, I have these walls here, and you'll notice they have different heights, 400 wide by 300 high, and the window 400 by 300. Now, I'm going to use 400 by 300s on this, okay? And I'm just going to use walls. So I'm just going to drag them out. You'll notice the word previews appeared. That's because I have shadows, but I haven't told the computer to cook my shadows yet. And when it cooks, what it does is it calculates where all your shadows should be. Right, now I've just dragged this wall down onto here, and you're going to see a thing straight away. Now, if you still had it on 50 up here, this probably wouldn't be in the right area. But as you can see, if I move around, this is lined up pretty well to where I need it to be, which is great. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying and moving my parts out from here. So I'm going to hold Alt and move that over to here. And by holding Alt, I've made a copy, and you can see I can just copy that again, and it just dragging it into space, and using the snaps really does make it a lot easier, doesn't it? And I'll do it again here. Again, I'm using my snaps. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my job so much more easy just by doing it this way. Okay, so I put that on there. Now, you see here, okay, now we have this sitting on the edge here. But over here, this one is sitting in the previous room. What do we intend to do about that? Well, we've got a couple of options. One option is that we could double it, like that, and have both of these be a door. The other option is that we could remove this one, literally, okay? And if we do that, and I'll just turn the lighting off for the moment, you will notice that we have a sudden kind of jarring area here. And we always want to avoid that unless it's a deliberate part of our level. So I'm going to put that back. I'm going to turn unlit back to lit. And if you want to be able to see things a little bit better, I'm just going to go to my lights and I'm going to grab a skylight. And this will put in some lovely global illumination bounces, which means we can see a little bit better as well. Looks a lot more realistic. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate these two all the way down, and I'm going to change this to 100 to make it quicker and easier. So 1 like that, 2 like that, and 3 like that, so they're in. And now if I change these back to 10, there we are. And like I say, it doesn't take very long. Okay, so don't feel frustrated if you know, you think this is going to take forever. Game development is a long process. You'll have seen, you know, if you're a fan of video games yourself, and you've said to yourself, why isn't there a sequel to Grand Horse Auto or something like that? It's because it takes so very, very long to build. You know, game developers aren't just sitting whistling looking out the window. It takes forever to do a big serious game. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to rotate this. Okay, and that gives us another piece that I can just drag like that. And I'm going to copy it all the way over here. Okay, and then I can make another copy and just put it there. And remember, I'm using snap, and so thanks to that, I know that it's going to look okay, it's going to fit, it's not going to be silly, because these are 400 by 400. If these pieces were 274 by 274, that would be completely different, and it would be horrible. I've had assets before that are like that, and I always try and make my assets, if they're snapping things together like this, even. Because until you've tried to, you know, use a selection of assets that are just really badly made, you'll never know true horror. Okay, let's move this along again. There we go. Okay, so again, we're just using everything that comes with Unreal Engine and nothing else. Okay, so we have these 3 rooms here. And now remember what I said, I want a doorway to come through here. Now we've got this double thick wall, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select wall door here, 400 by 300. And I can just right click here, and you see here I've got a replace selected actors. If I click on that, there, okay, I've got a nice double width door straight away. And I can do it again here. So I've selected both these actors by holding down Control, right click on wall door, there we go, make sure it's selected, right click here and just replace. Don't use place or it'll just place it over the top. Okay, so we know that this door here works, okay, with Unreal Engine, because it came with it, and so it makes a lot of sense really for it to work with its character. But it's always best to test everything in your game. So we're just going through it now, and you'll notice that by giving it these walls, we've changed the feel of it a lot. It's no longer open, it becomes claustrophobic, doesn't it? It becomes very claustrophobic. Now let's adjust that feeling of claustrophobia a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these 4 pieces here that made up the roof, and I'm going to hold Alt, sorry, the floor, and I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to drag them up. Okay, and they're going to make the ceiling of our room. Now click play, and you can see much more claustrophobic here. Okay, much more. If I go out through here, we've got access to the sky. It's wonderful. We can see it, isn't it beautiful? But not over there. No. Okay, now, what about in here? Well, we can make this room perhaps twice as high. So I'm just going to grab all the parts that make this, except for the door, and I'm just going to drag them up like that. Okay, and now I'm going to copy this one across, just holding Alt and Shift. Now, someone in the class has just asked me, well, what if pieces are the wrong size? What if, you know, you're going to have to move something to somewhere and it isn't the right size to move, and how are you going to make it do that? Well, you can hold V, and then if you drag it, it'll snap to the nearest vertex. So that's a big help. Okay, so we've increased the height of this, and I'm going to grab these 4 here at the bottom, and I'm just going to hold Alt and just drag them straight up like that. There we go. Okay, now if we go in here, you can see that we have a much larger area room going on. Okay, it's much nicer, but we can make the room look more oppressive with the use of windows. Now we know these are 300 high, so I'm going to get the wall window 300, and I'm going to put these up here and place actor wall window 300 400. Oops, not place, my mistake. Replace. See, I told you about that, didn't I? So now you can see that when we come in here, we have these very high up windows. Okay, and high up windows like this are great because they give you a feeling of the architecture starting to oppress you, because, you know, the windows are up there. It becomes very impersonal. Now, what we could do is we could make a little platform where you could jump up on the squares to get out of the window, but I'm not really interested in that. I'm trying really hard at the moment to kind of get across the idea of the simple things we're doing just to make some atmosphere happen inside of our level in the remaining 30 minutes we've got, because it's only an hour long, remember. Now, remember what I was saying, we're being reasonable. We like the idea of this being an outside, okay, so I'm going to swap the wall here with this 200, and look, we now have this. Now, important, okay, in a game, when we come up, you don't see nothing behind things, okay, and that's exactly what's behind here. So if I was to click play, okay, we know there's no we know there's no floor out there, okay, but there must be something out there. Now, what you might have is a wee background, perhaps, that's been built from, you know, your art team or whatever, or yourself if it's just you working. But if you want to just give the impression that there's stuff out there, I'm just going to grab a couple of these, including the roof. Okay, and I'm just going to move that over to there, and then I'm going to put another one, say, here. And I'm just going to copy those across. There we go. And just close that gap there because I'm using snaps. Now if I go into play, we should see, there you go, you see. So now we have the impression that our level's a lot larger than it actually is. And we've got this impression because we have these buildings behind here. Okay, so again, this is all giving us an impression. So this corridor now has gone from looking like a plain corridor to looking like a corridor that perhaps is in some sort of a town or factory complex. You're not sure. And what's giving it that impression is these buildings here, this kind of modern design building that's going on. We have flat roofs and things like that, and that's all feeding into your mind, giving you an impression of where you are, what you're doing, and what's happening. Okay, now let's have a look again at our start room over here. And if I was to put a window in here, we'd have a serious problem. Now watch, here's my wall window, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to replace my actor, and now I'm going to just click play, and it's nice because it lets more light into my level. But hang on a minute, there's nothing there. Why is there nothing there? And it's because obviously we're not building for that. So you must always take care and have a think about things like this. A window's great for letting in light, but if we went over here, you'd notice that the light's coming in just fine here. We don't need anything else. Okay, we don't need to know there's a floor because we're never going to get up that high. You'll have seen this numerous times in speedruns. You don't build what you don't need, but suddenly we need something here. Okay, and what we need really is floor, and we need wall. Well, let's just increase the amount of claustrophobia that our level has. So I'm just going to change this to 100. And I'm going to put a wall here. And then I'm going to take this wall and I'm going to copy it over here. And I'm going to duplicate this. So just to there and just to there, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to imagine how far the player can see. Alright? And these assets don't cost anything because they're just duplicates of these ones, okay? And we're going to build the lighting. So it's not like it's going to run our processors hot. Now I'm going to just duplicate this, so, not duplicate, so I replace this with that wall there. And then I'm going to move this one forward, about halfway, and I'm going to change that to that one. Okay, so we get this wall and that wall, and I'm going to duplicate the pair there and there. And these are simple tricks. I mean, these really are very simple tricks, but they work. Okay, because they make you feel that there's something going on out there, even if there isn't. So I'll just duplicate that and that there. And now if we hit play, suddenly there's a world outside our window. And I realise you can't see it very well because lighting and all, but I'll stick some materials on that soon. Okay, just some basic ones to keep us going. Okay, so we have this corridor here that we're going down, and that's all good and all, but it's not really very interesting, is it? So what we want to do is, now we want to add some interest to our level, because when it comes down to it, you're going to get past things. Now, if you're doing it yourself, okay, you're in charge of all of this. If you've got a guy who's in charge of the art direction, they're going to say to you, they're never going to say to you, we want an empty level. I mean, we want an empty corridor, because games are all about longevity and playtime, okay? And all we're doing is we are going from here, whee, all the way up here and into here, okay? And as you see, that took us less than 10 seconds. But what we need to do is we need to tell a story with everything we do. We need to use Unreal Engine to kind of tell our story for us. And so let's have a look at this corridor, okay? And let's just put a couple of things in. Now, if I go into my starter content, we do have some stuff in the props, but it's nothing really very interesting. We've got some chairs and a couch, and that's about it. But we can do a lot of stuff really just with basic shapes. And we've got basic shapes in spades. So I'm going to grab this cylinder here, okay, and my move set to 100, so I'm going to change that down to 10 again, and then I'm going to replace it in our level. There we go. So this could be a barrel, couldn't it? So I'm just going to change the scaling on it to 0.8. And the good thing is that once you kind of came up with a shape on this, you know, it doesn't take long to replace these with better detailed models, because you know what it is you need, you know exactly what it is you need, and you know exactly how you're going to use it. Okay, so there's one stack, say there, barrels, and then over here, let's have a drain. So for a drain, I would make this 0.1 by 0.1 to give us this pipe here. Okay, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to increase this scale by 3. Let's see how high up that goes. Oh, nice and high, not bad. Make it 6, so it goes right to the top. There we go, perfect. And as we can see, obviously, we've got this kind of space there where the wall's gone, but that's not a problem. Now I'm going to duplicate this again, so I made it 90 degrees and rotated it. I'm just going to bring it up and across. And I'm just going to increase the length of size there again. Okay, so all I'm doing is just messing around, making some really basic shapes here. Okay, so here's a cube. Okay, and this cube is, let's have a height of 0.2, and I'll change this one to 0.1, and this one 0.1. Right, there we go. So now we can start building little tools that we need. Okay, so let's say drains don't just hold themselves in the air. Okay, but that's so long it's going to be poking through into the other rooms. So I'm going to half the size of it. Oops, wrong one. So that should be 0.4 actually, make it slightly less than half size. And I'm going to change this down to 1 just for the snap. There we go, and I can now move that over to there, and then hold Alt and Shift and move it, and you'll notice I can do this. Okay, again, just giving some different shapes to our objects. I realise this isn't how a drain normally looks, but we're just, you know, furnishing up our level and making it look okay. Now, next to the door here, we're going to have perhaps an entry plate, so I'm just going to stick this box just there. And let's just do some adjusting on it. So 0.25, no, I'll make that 0.5, 0.25, actually 0.125, there we go. And the height of 1, so I'll just pull that through to there. Okay, and we're just starting to get these shapes. Well, yes, you could literally make a game this way if you wanted to. You know, you could. There's no reason why not. But the problem with making a game, you know, just using these basic shapes is it's going to be a very, very, very basic shape. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a very basic game rather in look. I mean, if you have killer gameplay, then go for it. You know, that game where it's all in slow motion looks fantastic. Right, here we have duplicated these barrels, and because I've duplicated them, make some minor changes. This is important, okay? Minor changes, because we're people, okay, and we don't duplicate things exactly the same way. Okay, that's kind of nice. What about if there was a barrel on the floor as well? Well, let's move over a barrel, and we'll rotate it, and just have it come up like that. Okay, and I'm going to do that. There we go, and it looks like it's fallen off something now, doesn't it? And then at the end here, maybe some packing crates. So let's say these crates should be 0.5 in width and 0.5 in height. Okay, so we've got these nice kind of cardboard boxes. And the reason that I've done that as well is so that people can't jump on them and go over the top of there. Now, if I stack them on top of each other, there won't really be a very visible edge, but what I can do is just do that and then just duplicate them like that. And never, ever, ever take for granted the ingenuity of players. They will find ways to do things that you could never flipping imagine as a game developer. And you'll be greatly amused when they do. But just think to yourself like a player, you know, how's a player going to try and get over that wall? They will try and use that. Let's put it this way. They will try and use that. But we can stop them. And we will stop them too. So if we go back into architecture, you'll notice we have this pillar. I'm just going to drag it in. What's the use of this pillar, you may be asking? Well, we already have this really nice shape going on here, don't we? So if I just pull this down to 50, like that, and I'm going to just duplicate it up, and this is obviously not the right one, so I'm going to copy that. There we go. Now then, do I want it high on this side as well? Yes, so I'm going to copy that one up. So now our corridor is uneven, as you can see, like that. Why? Because I want to use this. Now I'm going to turn this to about 40, maybe 45 degrees. So I'm going to change my snap angle. There we go. I've done 40 already, so now that is 45. And let's just get this into a nice position, okay, because that's what we want. So I'm going to change this to 5 again. And intersections. You see here where this intersection is, okay? It's important when we're doing it what the player's seeing. So if we just come down here to where the player is and play from here, you'll see that we can't see the end of that, which is great. It means it doesn't look silly, but that one we can, and that's not good at all. So if I just adjust this, and I'm going to bring it down about that many, I think should be enough. Let's have a look. Now we have this gap here where it's not going through the actual ceiling, so I'm going to turn off my angle snap. That's my move, not my angle snap. And I want to get this as close as I can, and I think that should be it. Okay, just use your best possible judgment. Yep, that looks fine. You see it's intersecting just at the top there. Because players will pick up on this, and they do frequently wonder why it looks the way it does. Okay, now let's move this along. And I'm just putting these 100 apart. Now, because I've copied 3, we don't really have a copy array tool here, but I can just, you know, do it this way, which is a very efficient way of doing it, and lots of control. So why have I done it that way? Well, if we go into play again, you'll see now that our corridor is open and it has this heavy shadowing coming down, which is looking great. Okay, the shadows aren't particularly accurate, but I don't care. We can jump over this barrel here. Now there's nothing over this side, you see. This is why we always play through our levels and always make sure that we are basically trying to do as much as we can. Now, if I put a roof on this part using these, I have a problem, and do you know what it is? Let's just have a look. If I go inside, you'll see that we have these unattractive 3 parts just coming through here. Now, this isn't too much of a problem if we already have a design that's going to cover these up, but these ones don't. And so the problem with this is, of course, that it's not going to look fantastic. Now, what I can do is I can change my transform gizmo like this, and it should let me bring them out a little bit. Now, I'm just going to change this to 1, and I can get about halfway like that. Okay, now I don't want it to come through the roof, and what I'm doing is I'm transforming or moving this on the items local axis rather than the world local axis, which is a big difference. Okay, well, that kind of worked okay. Now, what about if I just grab this and do that? Now you'll notice we don't have an angle at all there. It's because I've turned angle snap off. So let's do it again. There we go. Now, if I come into the room there, you can see that that's made these copies on the other side of this. Well, that's okay, because all I need to do is just reduce their width, which I can do just by changing the scale. So let's say 0.25, there we go, you see. Would give us that width, which ain't no use. Now I'm thinking this might be the Z. Let's have a try. No, it's not Z, so it must be this one. Yeah, it was that one. Okay, so I'm going to move these forward now. And the angle's not right really, because they're kind of going down, as you can see, but that's because I didn't snap these when I was first using them, so let's just fix that. So I'll turn off my snap, and I'm just straightening it by eye. There we go. And here's my panel here, which I'm now going to move over the top of my cylinder. There we are. And I'm going to change this to 0.45 so that it's slightly narrower and it fits on the cylinder. Okay, so why don't I go to all that bother? Well, if I come through here to my level now, you'll see we have this annex. That's what this is called, by the way. And the annex is basically separating out the 2 areas so that we have this one and this one. Now, here you can see a problem because this door is blocked. But that's okay, because all we need to do is adjust the Z-axis. And then it won't be. So there we go, the Z-axis, and I'm just going to keep adjusting it until it just goes over there like that. And I think I need to look at the value and make it 0 on the end. There we are. Okay, and I can bring another piece down that will then go over this should I want. So now let's check it. And as you can see, the level, because it's more interesting, has slowed us down, given us things to play with, and literally doubles the amount of time, if not more, that it takes us to get to the box. Because we have done what's known as reasonable level building. So we have things that are kind of blocking our path, but everything seems to be here for a reasonable reason. That's kind of how ergonomics works, okay, which is the big scary word I was telling you about. It's very important because you're looking at things and you're like, well, they must have a reason. They do have a reason. Or they appear to anyway. Now, let's finish what we were doing just out back here. And as you can see, we have these 2 walls and they kind of look the same. This is your last chance, by the way, to get some more questions in if you want. I've answered a couple, but I know that I'm doing a show and tell here, and you guys are just following along. Yep, that looks excellent. Well done. I know I work fast, so... Okay, if I go into content here, and I want to go to my starter content. Now, to get a difference between these 2 walls here, okay, I don't normally throw materials on till a little bit later, but we have, you know, a few different bricks we can use. So I'm going to put these nice new clay bricks here, and I'm just clicking and dragging. Okay, and that's just so that we can kind of get an idea of how that looks. And then behind it I'll use these ones, which are a slightly different colour. Okay, and I'm not interested in bringing these inside of my level at all. And down here I'll put some concrete tile. There we go. Now I can apply it to all of them if I want to, just by doing this and just doing that. Okay. Now if I click play and we look out the window, you can see that we've got these two different levels going on there, which makes a lot more sense. You see? Okay then. So I'm starting to bring this to a close. I'm going to show you finally, obviously we've got the word preview everywhere, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the light. Now if we pull back, you can see here's our level. You can see our start, you can see our end. It's not telling you when you're at the end, but those of you who did the blueprint tutorial, the blueprint lessons, will know how easy it is to do something like that. Now if I go to my volumes, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a light, a pre-computed, sorry, right, we're going to do light map density. Okay, so if I type in light, you can see here, you stop that, you naughty thing. We have our volumetric light map density volume and light mass character indirect detail volume, and our light mass importance volume. The one I'm interested in is the light mass importance volume, which I'm going to drag and just plop here on top of this building. And I'm going to scale it so it is exactly, or nearly exactly, covering these. So again, remember, if you want to zoom in on just this item, press F. Okay, so I'm just scaling it and moving it. Okay, and just go up there like that and pull back so I can have a quick check, and yes, it's covering it. And now this is going to prioritize building the lighting only for these bits, okay, that are inside here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my current level, and I'm going to call it our prototype level build 1, just so we know what it is, and I'm going to click build. And this will now start the process of building all the lighting in our level, because I'm not using dynamic, so shadows aren't calculated in real time. That means we can get much more precise looking, and it's now building the lighting, and that number should go up reasonably quickly. Yes, it is. I've had levels where it takes 15 hours to do this. Right, so now as you can see, the lighting's much more realistic. So we've got lighting coming in through the door, and we've got much brighter light. You see that? So we've got the light coming in, but it's interacting with the pillars coming over the top, and it leads to these really beautiful little effects. So let's click play. There we go. And there's these edges here. You see those? These are because our meshes are meeting at the edges, and we've got, if you think about it, hold two cubes next to each other. The two faces of the cubes that are touching each other, they are what's causing this kind of artifacting. So in reality, when we come to actually building our level, we wouldn't really want a piece inside here. I'll show you that a little bit better. Let me have a look. If I go into our starter content, architecture, and just double click on our wall, okay, what I mean is this edge here, okay, when it meets the other edge on the other piece, which would be here, it starts creating an artifact, because what you have is two polygons really, really close to each other, just literally touching. And that's what's causing that artifact. If we get rid of that, we wouldn't have it. And that's something you always take into account when you're building your pieces. Okay, so let's look out the window, and we can see the shadowings affecting the ground outside, which is great. And I'm going to go through here, and we can see this looks lovely now. We've got global illumination, we've got light coming in over the top like that. Just jump across, and then in here you see we haven't got any indoor lighting at all, but it's working so far, isn't it? It's working just fine. So again, if we just go back here to where we start, and we can see that just coming through the level, already there's enough interest here just to slow us down in the first room. In the second room, we're looking around at the architecture, and we're looking around at what's in here, and we've got to navigate over this barrel. And of course, some people are going to try and use this as an opportunity to jump over the wall and escape into nowhere land. Or we can go into this room. Now, what about that bit where they've just gone over the wall into nowhere land? Well, that's easy to solve as well. What we want to do is we want to make an actor. Now, how many times have you been infuriated in a video game because you said to yourself, well, that wall's only 2 inches high. I can jump over that. And you can't. It's because we're using a blocking volume. Now, if I just drag my blocking volume, which is here, and scale it, okay, and I'm just literally going to use my blocking volume like this. Okay, and now play. Oops, that was my ball I just fired there. See? Balls, 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 balls. It's because it's the first person map. But now if I go over here, I can't get past because there's a blocking volume stopping me. And that's where all the disappointing parts that you go in video games, why can't I get over that wall? That's why. Because if you could, I'd need to do exactly the same amount of time as I've just spent now getting you across that wall, or rather putting the stuff on the other side of the wall for you to look at, which doesn't have anything to do with the video game. Because when we go in here, into this, maybe the level will end, or maybe there's a door here, or a door over there, maybe there's a door there, in which case, yes, we will go around here. Maybe there's a teleporter that takes you somewhere completely different. We just don't know. But what I'm saying is, we can't build everything for the player. Okay, if we expect a player to go into a place that they can't get to, that's why we put in a blocking volume. Right, so that brings to an end the second tutorial that I've been doing, the second lesson. I really, really hope... Oh, no, wait, it doesn't. I've got a few more things to do, actually. Now I think about it. Firstly, I want to ask if anyone has any questions on rapid level design. Sorry, rapid level building, because this isn't design. A level design is someone else. And also, while I'm here, this is a good chance to talk about these. Now, this is... If you see it on a web page, this is what they call Z-space fighting. Okay, what's happening is this mesh and this mesh here are fighting to have this appear in the same space. Okay, neither of them has... Oh, you're very, very welcome. Neither of these has well, neither of these has an instruction saying you are more important than this. Okay, so neither of them know which one should have priority, and so as such, this one and this one are both flickering between them, just trying to find which one should be, you know, the one that sits there. Now, we can adjust that manually if we want to. 0.995. Suddenly it's not there anymore. Okay, we've got a very tiny join, and we can do that. If we do this, 0.995. Now, if we're just prototyping, which we are, this is a good way of doing it. Okay, this is a good way of getting our level to really be tested. That's the term I'm looking for, okay? Because you have to test everything as you're going along. Now, let's say that you have finished, you lucky person, okay? And this is your video game level that, you know, you want to work on. This is your starting place that you've built. Well, what can you do from here? Okay, well, rather than kind of copying every single thing that we've done, Unreal Engine's fantastically helpful in that if we just do Control and A and I just right click over here, okay, you'll see we've got all these over here that give us lots and lots of extra options like placing actors, replacing actors with, and so on. Now, what I'm interested in only is these items here that are called floor, and these items over here that are called pillar, and these items that are cubes and walls. I don't want anything that isn't a static mesh actor. So let's go up here, and I'm just sorting this. So I just click type until I got my first static mesh actor, and I'm going to go down and make sure. So I've got shift and click on the last one that I've got all these selected. Now I want to put these into a folder which I'm going to call corridor. Okay, I'm glad you found it easy to follow, thank you. And I'm going to put this into corridor. Okay, now if I make sure I've got everything selected, okay, which I can do just by right click, select all descendants, I can now convert this into one big static mesh, should I so decide, or I can export these if I want to as well. So I'm going to merge my actors, so let's say merge, okay, and these will now become one big messy actor, and I'm going to give it a name. So let's say this is my corridor basic, okay, and click save. So there it is now, and if I click on this, you'll notice I've still got my original pieces all over here, but now I also have my corridor basic, which is separated out by material IDs and things like that. So there we go. You can see that we can literally navigate around by doing this. It doesn't have the lighting the other one does, because it's not actually in a level, it's just in a preview state. But you can also see its size here, which is, let me see, 4,560 units by 2,400 units by 8,814. So 45 meters by 24 meters by 8.14 meters is the size, because 100 units equals a meter. Okay, so why is that useful? Well, we can now take our corridor basic here, and I can, if I just go over here, asset actions, I can export it, and I'm going to export this as corridor basic, and it's going to be an FBX file. So I'm just going to click save and export, yes, and that's all there was to it. Now, why I've done that is because if I just go over here and don't import, if I go over here to my desktop and pull out my file that I just literally made, which was, did I save that? Hang on a second. I don't think I saved it, hang on. Corridor basic, right click, asset action, export. Oh no, I did, there you go, it's in workroom content. That would explain a lot. The wrong folder, you see. So there we are, there's my corridor basic, and if I just click on it, right click and open with, and I'll just use my 3D viewer, this won't take very long at all. There we go, you see. So as you see, the model is fully exportable, not just for, you know, fun and frolics as it may be to look at it and send it to other people, but because we can now open this in 3D Studio Max, Maya, what's it called, Modo, Blender, whatever you want. So this can now be heavily broken down and made into all the assets that we're going to need to make this a much more detailed level. So I kind of hope that's obviously something that's going to be kind of useful to you. You can see it's not many polygons at all, which is why it looks like that. I'll just quickly open it up in 3ds Max just to kind of show you. So there's 3ds Max 2020. And again, if anyone has any questions before I wrap up for today, I would love to hear them. You've been a great class. Thank you for your comments and your questions. I love each and every one of you, and you can all have yourselves a gold star for being an excellent class. I'm just sipping some coffee now while 3ds Max loads. Delicious. Okay, so if I now go to my folder, which is just here, just let 3ds Max finish loading in the background. Okay, pull that to there and import. Plop. Excellent. Go away VR, we're not using you at the moment. Now if I just expand my viewport in 3D Studio Max, same thing again, you see, we have everything here and it's all sized correctly, all of it. And you can see, if I go into my elements, okay, I can literally work on this now and remodel all these pieces and then import them back in separately into Unreal Engine, and I know that they're going to fit. I know they're going to fit, and that makes things so much easier for us all. Okay, so I'm going to wrap things up now. Sorry I'm finishing about 5 minutes early. It's gone by so quick, hasn't it? It's been lovely. Next week on Tuesday at 6 PM, I'm going to be covering more on blueprints, and I'm going to be doing some advanced level design stuff. If you'd like to watch, you're very welcome to and participate in the class. I'm also going to be doing over-the-shoulder teaching, if anyone's interested in that, where I will look at what you're doing whilst you're following along, and you can ask me and I'll pop onto your desktop and, you know, give you a hand if you need it. Also, obviously, for students who are working on portfolios, I'm always happy to do a look over of your portfolio. This is a free service. I'm always happy to help students, always. So, you know, do get in touch with me. Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. And until the very next class, I will see you later. And until then, goodbye. And that's the class finished. And I'm going to be stopping streaming. So anyone who's been watching the stream, ta-ra. The stream's been going for 2 hours, 20 minutes, 30 seconds from now. So that's pretty cool. Everyone in Discord, I'm going to disconnect that one now, so I'm sure there's a way of doing that. Blah, 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 I can't remember. Right click. No, not delete channel. Jesus. Turn on camera, turn off camera, disconnect. There we go. And I'll just wave at the camera there. Hello, everybody, as I go away. Goodbye, everybody.